and welcome to the AI Kubernetes Show. My name is William Chia. I'm your host, coming to you live from KubeCon in Atlanta. I am very excited to be talking today with Eddie Wassef, who is the Managing Director, Head of Architecture and AI at Chase. He is on the board of KCD Texas. He is a maintainer for the Kubernetes.net operator, and he is a grill master and barbecue whisperer, an expert in Texas barbecue, as everyone knows, the greatest barbecue in the world. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We've been talking a lot about AI in the world of platform engineering and the world of software development. As you think about the difference between how a platform engineer and an application developer, service developer approaches to AI and their tooling, what do you kind of see the differences between that model, or are there?
That's a great question, right? Because you really are either one or the other. I'm fortunate enough to kind of play in the middle, working with both of the application engineers as well as platform engineers. And I think it's a scope of what you're trying to deliver, right? So with AI agents nowadays, you can either look at your code in a very small context, figure out how to build tests, how to get your features done. And I think that's a great use case for application developers. I do that every day with my IDEs and that I use. But from a platform engineer, it's like, how do I ask my AI agent to be a partner to build a tool for other application developers and potentially even other AI agents? Actually, I've been walking around seeing a lot of, I would say, platform engineering AI agent or tools out there that help people debug, provision infrastructure better, get things going to simplify the developer's landscape. And that's really refreshing, right? We've heard about the Cursors, the Windsurfs from an application perspective, but now there's some really big cross-cutting platform engineering tools out there as well.
That's really interesting. Is there, you don't necessarily need to name specific tools unless one pops out to you, but is there a workflow that you use for agentic AI that, this is a way that I use agents in my organization, or a way that you've an example?
I like to think I'm a little bit outside the box. So I do a lot of my personal stuff with a couple of agents. I have my personal ChatGPT, I've got my Claude, I've got my Windsurf, and I kind of pit them against each other because a lot of them have good strengths in certain areas. So I'll have my my ChatGPT act like a business analyst program manager. I use some prompts and I ask it to act as that persona, ask me questions about what I'm trying to achieve, and build up a whole kind of requirements spec, almost like spec flow from GitHub. You give that then to Claude to create the full, use test cases around it, structure for the project, and then I just paste the whole thing inside of my Windsurf editor and have it go to town and see what happens. And we kind of go back and forth, and Claude code will test the code when it's done and stuff like that. So I think that's a good workflow. Most places and most people that I know use one or the other. A lot of them use Cursor. A lot of people use Windsurf. I really don't think there's one to rule them all. I like to think of them as a gang of four. That's an old term reference, gang of four, but it's a gang of four agents that you use together to really help you build agentic solutions or agentically enabled solutions.
I really like how you've laid out this workflow. We've had a lot of guests on the show talk about feeding specs into AI to make them, more reliable, and using AI to generate other things. But I think you're the first person I've talked to that gave a very concrete, this is the pipeline of sorts that I use to my AI tooling pipeline.
Well, you live in Austin, us Texans do things just a little differently. So
best at the barbecue, best at agentic use.
There you go. We'll see. We'll see. Texas agents, patent pending.
We won't get too localized. So one of the ideas is that, of course, with all of this help that we have, if we run this flow and we have all of these agents do this work for us, theoretically that, does one of several things. It either increases the velocity of what we can do, it takes the same amount of time but increases the quality of what we can do, or It allows us to go and do other things because we can do the same thing at the same quality in a shorter time. There is a little bit of a debate that if that is true, and I'm curious, the idea is like, is AI, does it really make us faster? Does it really give us better quality code? Does it really free up our time? Or are we kind of spinning our wheels in other areas? And it's not a yes or no, but a spectrum. I'm curious, where do you personally land on, lots of benefits, very bullish, or a little bit more bearish? I've seen some challenges.
Well, it's a tool, right? It's definitely something that if you use it correctly, you'll get a lot of velocity, a lot of better quality, just a lot better quality of life, I would say. But at the same time, it's a very powerful tool. If you don't know how to drive a stick shift and then you go rent yourself a sports car, you're going to crash into a wall, right? It's the same thing, I think, with AI. If you really know how to drive, or take advantage of the power that you have at your fingertips, it is a game changer, right? It takes away a lot of the minutia. The simplest thing you can do is take a piece of code and ask it to document it and build you your docs folder, and it lights up the code. Something you've never seen before, maybe a legacy piece of code. That in and of itself is a huge value. Then, I'll tell you as a developer, we don't like writing tests. So, AI can help you in that aspect, help you write tests, bring your overall quality of your code delivery up. And when you make a change, you can tell if it breaks. So I think you're right. It is a spectrum. I think that you can get hurt, with AI and introduce bugs. And, heaven forbid, you let it deploy your code automatically without adding the checks and balances, and it can ruin your production environment. So just like anything else, it's a very powerful tool. You got to use it in the right way to get the value.
This is terrific. I love your analogy of, if you don't know how to drive the stick shift, you're going to grind the gears or crash the car. And from your perspective, it sounds like you're saying the thing that's equal to, like, the driving lessons on the stick shift is getting acquainted with it via tasks like test generation or documentation generation. These are entry points to get familiar with how AI works before you unleash it on full deployment.
Absolutely. And I love doing that with all my old code, that has no documentation or tests, right? Go back and document it, tell it to write, contributor guides, recommend if there are any issues. Get to know, it sounds corny, get to know your AI agent and their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's something that if more people do it, they'll understand what it can and cannot do, what Claude can do, what Windsurf can do, what ChatGPT can do, and you can use it in the best way possible.
I think this really is the case where familiarity starts to unlock how you interact with an AI tooling, and sometimes it can be unintuitive.
Yep, absolutely. The thing is, it's a very powerful, very fast piece of software, and it's a slippery slope. You can go down one line and say maybe change one method or one class, and it goes through and it changes half your code base. And so you got to understand how, first of all, like your Git works, how you can roll back an issue, how you can maybe just ask it to undo what it did. These things come with time, but I think just like anything else, I remember when I used SourceSafe for source control, and I was absolutely against Git, but now I couldn't imagine going to anything else. And so I think AI is going to be the same way.
We've heard a lot of analogy on the show. These are bangers, don't crash the stick shift Ferrari. And hey, how did you feel about Git if you were used to Subversion or some other?
Yeah.
You had the resistance, but now you can't imagine life without it.
Are you saying I can't lock the entire code base for that one code change that I do? Like, I remember that was such a big change. And we would have to stop working because somebody locked the entire repo until they were done. And it's a totally different world, and AI is no different.
That is amazing. In terms of, things like documentation, tests, every engineer loves great documentation. Every engineer hates writing documentation.
That's right.
Saying that we love well-tested, good code coverage. We hate writing the tests. However, one thing that happens is if you are the one that writes the docs, if you are the one that writes the tests, there's a bit of a journey that you go on that's different than the architectural or design thinking you do when you're programming. Is there something lost if you delegate that journey to AI and don't have to struggle through that task yourself?
There's definitely Yes, the short answer is yes. You will lose something, but I think the argument can be made that we always lose something whenever there's a new tool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I learned Turbo Pascal in assembly when I first started. I would never go to assembly again, but I lost a lot of understanding of how memory and CPU and registers work when I went to a higher level language. And agent prompts and getting it to document things for the next person or for the business, you will lose definitely some understanding, some struggle, but it might be okay. You might be gaining something else somewhere else, right? That's kind of how I see it. It's not perfect. It's just like bringing new people on the team. They're going to do things slightly different than you are. Maybe you're going to delegate things to them instead of to you, and you're going to lose that knowledge. But now you can focus on something more important.
If you develop in a modern interpreted language, you lose a little bit of the how to do memory management. What are pointers?
Exactly. What are pointers? Yeah.
But does that mean you really can't be a software developer? No, it unlocks all kinds of other types of productivity and amazing
Absolutely.
code patterns.
When we're doing things today that nobody thought could be done back when we were writing, even C, right? These are things that the abstraction gives you. And I think prompt engineering and spec flow is that next programming language.
That's really interesting. Tell me a little bit about that. What would that look like? What would the software engineer life look like, or what does it look like today?
So we had a little bit of an experiment with this maybe 10 or 15 years ago with like Gherkin, where you were doing test-driven development or behavioral-driven development, and you tried to explain what the system was supposed to do, and then the test would fail and you kind of build off of that. And we lost that. I'm not sure where we kind of lost the whole tests are important, kind of do that first. But now we're coming back to what is the intent of the business logic? Don't worry too much about the language. I am very much like a .NET guy. I will fight somebody, fist fight somebody over Golang. But you don't have to do that anymore, because if you had a Golang library, I could translate it to .NET and understand it with AI and vice versa. So it really, I would say, elevates us a little bit. But it now forces you to think about the important thing, which is what value is my software bringing to my customers, whether that customer is another developer, whether it's the business, whether it's a consumer. So I like the direction it's going. I'm a little bit, I don't think we're entirely there yet. I think spec kit or spec flow, I can't recall the name, is a great first step in that direction. And it really gets you thinking about what's the point, what's the value, what's the expected output.
This is really powerful. A question I've asked has been, what is the mindset shift that engineers need to look into? And if I'm kind of hearing you correctly, you're saying oftentimes we can be out in the ivory tower or in our own brains or in our own organizations, but getting outside the doors, which is a very old concept.
Yeah.
But in the world of AI, this is a way that technical practitioners, engineers can get outside the doors in a way with their mind thinking about how is this code going to be used by whom and which way.
Exactly. And I think that's important. And a lot of times you see a lot of software products fail because, maybe they are stuck in they didn't do customer feedback. They didn't get the right requirements. And they don't know until it's too late. And they spent months or years working on a piece of software. And this is almost like taking you to the lean mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lean startup kind of mindset. Say your intent very clearly, get it to be built, and then go check it. And if it satisfies the requirement and what your customer wants, then you iterate. If not, you can very easily pivot off of that and do something else.
I am a huge fan of Eric Ries and lean
shout out. Shout out. Hopefully you can sign my audiobook, unfortunately, but I don't know if that's going to work.
Not to start any fistfights with the Go fans in the room, but you are a maintainer for the .NET operator. Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be an open source maintainer in 2025. Is it same old? Are there new challenges emerging? What does that look like?
So I think this is probably the best time to be a maintainer. First of all, the community is phenomenal. There's so much support. There's so many groups, so many people to talk to. You can reach out to anybody that wrote any piece of code anywhere and talk to them about, what this is supposed to do, how you want to make it better. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to be very receptive to your help. And that's a great thing because we've really shifted the mindset of sharing the common values and the common value we get from a piece of software. I remember for this .NET operator that I'm working on, I was a user. I thought it was great. I found some issues in my real life work, and I reached out to the author and I said, hey, it would be great if you do this or that. And he's like, I'd love a contribution. And that just clicked in my head. I was very much an enterprise guy. We didn't do any open source for 15 years. It was very much, everything was private. Everything was their IP. When I got into that world and I saw how he was building it, how he was sharing it, how other people had similar problems, and then you submit a pull request and it gets merged and your little GitHub icon shows up on the repo, it was amazing. It was addicting, and now I contribute to several repos, but it's a collective help. When you talk to your executives, and I'm in these talks all the time, do you want the 5 developers over there to be the only ones that are working on this code, or do you want the 5,000 people in the ecosystem finding bugs, patching it, and adding features that you don't have time to add? So I think open source is very healthy. I think it's going to continue to grow. If you have the capacity to contribute, please do. There are so many projects out there that are doing some amazing things. If nothing else, and you want to do something for humanity, there's a ton of repos like alpha folding and folding laundry and things like that you can contribute to and really just help move technology along.
I do love this. There is an unprecedented level of ability to contribute to things that are changing our lives every day and that we interact with. That wasn't the way things used to be, but now, open source was once a rare thing, and now it is the ubiquitous model for so much.
And AI is like at the forefront of that, because you can go in, find a repo that you're using. You don't maybe understand it. You ask AI to explain it to you, tell it what you want to do, add some tests around it, and contribute that back into the ecosystem. You can do this for self-driving cars if you want to go with OpenPilot, right? You can do this with image recognition, with anything around AI, anything around automation, anything around platforms. There's going to be a dozen repos that you can find to contribute to, and AI is just an additional tool that helps you do that and help your fellow developers.
Well, you mentioned that a lot of what you do, or at least a component of it, is executive communication, conversations across your organization from individual developers to an executive level, especially in a large enterprise like Chase. I'm curious, what advice would you offer to folks in engineering orgs that maybe the conversation that they're having as an engineering team and the conversation that leadership are having about AI, those conversations aren't necessarily aligning?
Yep.
Any advice that you would have in order to drive that conversation within your organization?
I mean, that is definitely something that I think a lot about, and I struggle with a little bit. I might have a duality between working in the executive world and then also working in the open source world. And I'll tell you a common thing that everybody has on the top of their mind is, how does this help me and not hurt me? And I think maybe with AI, that second part is more important. Companies are very worried about leaking data, about AI automating, bad commits into their code, taking down production, because you've heard about some people that have taken down production with AI. And you have to address that. You have to address the elephant in the room, for lack of a better term. The thing is, the way I look at it, do not treat AI like it's some magic wand, right? You would not let a new hire push code to production unless you had all the checks and balances. Why is AI any different, right? You would not accept a pull request unless somebody else that knew the code reviewed it. If you have guardrails around additional tests, coverage, performance in some cases, AI should be absolutely no different. And if you follow the fundamentals of like modern software development, AI is not very dangerous if you think about it. It can actually help your developers, feel, like they're on the cutting edge. They get to play with some of the greatest tools. Don't use models that are leaking your code out. Like, you can bring them in-house and run them in your VS Code or your Cursor or your Windsurf. But then treat it like a new hire just submitted code. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I really love this framework. Oftentimes, some of the disconnect between the business and the IT team or engineering team organization is they're talking different languages. And so what I'm hearing from you is if you can talk in a language that's universal, even all the technical bits aside, anybody in leadership can understand if we bring on a new hire and we want them to contribute code, what hoops, for lack of a better term, will we expect them to jump through? Anybody in leadership, whether they're an engineer or not, can understand if we brought somebody new on board, we would expect them to test the code and make sure it's safe and make sure it's not leaking our proprietary customer data. And let's put just those same checks in place for AI. That's all we're asking for. It becomes a more reasonable conversation to say, yes, it can help us. Let's make sure it doesn't also hurt us.
Absolutely. And the thing we all have to remember is that we're all people, right? Everybody has, their work life and then their personal life. Everybody's worried about, maybe some people are worried about losing their job to AI. Some people are worried about, well, is this going to leak all my data? Am I going to have a breach that I have to pay a fine for? These are normal people concerns, right? And that's no different with AI. When you have that conversation, you are talking to people and you want to address their fears, what makes them excited, and you try to get that. Now, in this case, you talk about, we're going to add the checks and balances. We're going to treat it like another human or an army of humans that have come in and started contributing code. We would not give them the keys to the castle. We are not going to suddenly not have a need for all the developers that are in our organization to write more code. As a matter of fact, now we have more code to write and we've got AI to help you. So it's kind of, you have to think about it from the human aspect. We're all technologists, but at the end of the day, we're human. So you talk to a human, you have no problem.
I love this. Something I'm fond of saying is in the age of AI, we need to be more human.
Absolutely.
And I hear you saying the same thing. This is, don't think there could be a more powerful point. I am curious, in terms of engineering mindset, another challenge, in addition to speaking to our leadership, is this idea that, as engineers, we love math, we love inputs and outputs, we love deterministic, reliable things. This is why many people go into software development versus, art or literature.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden now I am in a, stochastically generated world where the output could be random, the output could be non-deterministic or is non-deterministic.
Yeah.
How do you, as an engineer yourself, like how do you wrestle with the deterministic versus non-deterministic elements of AI, and what mindset do you think engineers should need to have in general towards this?
So I personally, I love that it's non-deterministic. About a year or two ago, I got into building agents, and I had my first experience with a non-deterministic output that just blew my socks off. I had multiple tools. I was trying to get it to do something and visualize. Basically, my spending was out of control, trying to figure out where I was spending money. And I was like, build me a chart at the end of the day with this charting library, this charting tool, using a product online, a great product. But that had an error. And I guess I had used up my tokens or something, and it returned an error. And the agent, you can see in the thing, it basically said, this tool's broken. Let me try again. Third time, it's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and build them an ASCII chart instead because this tool is broken. And that blew me away. The fact that in a normal world, in a deterministic world, I would have gotten an error. After analyzing spreadsheets and Quicken and all this, it would have just failed and said, oh, it can't generate you a graph. But this agent, through the LLM, was able to say, well, I know what the intent is. I want to satisfy the developer. And it was a bug, don't get me wrong, but it was a beautiful bug. I'm going to call it a feature. And that, to me, is opened up my eyes to what you can actually do with non-deterministic output. Again, in the case of like code generation, no two developers are ever going to write the same thing, right? So again, you look at what you want to give it as an input, what expected an output, and you check the quality of what's in the middle. That's going to be different, and that's okay, right? Again, it's human. If I had the ability to do something, as quickly as AI, I would probably never do it the same way twice. We always say as developers, if I were to write the same code again, I would write it differently. And once I saw that error, maybe it was a unique case for me, I was very happy with the non-deterministic aspect of AI because it got me thinking, these are the things that I could benefit from, the non-deterministic aspect, but also if I wanted something more deterministic, I had to take extra steps. So you do things like deep thinking and you run them multiple times and you vote on the best answer. And that kind of helps you, understand it better. So I think it's scary that it's new, but the value and the potential is very, very high. So don't be scared of the non-deterministic aspect of AI.
This is one of the best explanations I've heard, to basically say, think about yourself as an engineer. You are non-deterministic.
Yeah.
The code you wrote last year, if you were to write that again this year, would it be the same?
The funny thing is, if you look at your code from last year, you would go like, what? Who wrote this code? This is awful code. And then you realize, oh, it was me.
Oh, that was me.
And AI is no different. It learns, it gets better, and it'll continue to write better code.
Well, Eddie, I really appreciate having you on the show. You've dropped a lot of knowledge bombs on us. I'm going to be thinking a lot about this stuff for a long time to come. For the folks that are in the audience that want to connect with you, where should they seek you out online?
I've had a great time. Thank you so much. I would say the best way to find me is on LinkedIn under Eddie Wassef. I don't know if you guys could link like the QR code or something. And then if you're in Texas, we have KCD Texas. We're doing our yearly conference in May at the Texas Museum of Computing History. We'd love to have you there. We have our website at kcdtexas.org. Come meet us there and tell me what you think about AI and the state of Kubernetes.
This is great. Thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate you. Thank you much.